All right, it is 12:31, and at BIA, we like to keep things timely and moving along. So I hope everybody's enjoying this. I have to say, for a beautiful sunny Friday morning after what has been a bear of a week, if not a bear of a month, if not a bear of 19 months, I'm feeling pretty darn good today. I feel very inspired. I feel like I have a bounce in my step, and I just feel renewed. Which I think we all need, right? We need to retool and renew. And I hope you all had the opportunity over the last few days to feel a little bit of self-empowerment, self-reflection, and get that sense of renewal that I'm feeling. So I want to move along, and our next panel is another just great group of speakers. I'm very excited. We know the importance of STEM as we talk about upskilling and reskilling in this crazy COVID world. What more relevant could be than a discussion with women in STEM? To moderate our Women in STEM panel, we have Karina Polagruto, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at MarketSmith. Karina is going to tell you a little bit about herself and what she does at MarketSmith, and then she's going to introduce the panelists. So Karina, the floor is all yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Michelle. As Michelle mentioned, my name is Karina Polagruto. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at MarketSmith. We're a woman-owned, full-service technology and data-driven media and creative agency located here in New Jersey. And I'm so excited to have the privilege of moderating this panel and speaking with these inspiring leaders. Thank you all for being here with us. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. Complete bios for the panelists can be found in the speaker section of the event webpage. Don't forget to tag NJBIA at NJBIA to keep the conversation going on social media. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the panel. With us today, we have Myrna Cirillo, Senior Manager, Contract Strategy and Analytics from Bristol-Myers Squibb. Darshan Desai, Professor and Chair of the Business Data Science Department at Berkeley College. And Sherry Horwitz, Senior Vice President of IT at Synchronous Technologies. And now to get the conversation going. Sherry, I'll kick my first question over to you. What would you say has been the greatest challenge you've experienced as a woman in STEM, and how have you been able to navigate through it?
For me personally, I think the biggest challenge was that I didn't expect to be a woman in STEM. So, and here I am. So I think learning and developing confidence as I went along, realizing that I was a woman in STEM helped. So I think that was one thing, and realizing, you are the only woman in the room often. And finding your voice is something that has taken time, but I think I've done over the years.
Myrna, how about you?
Sure. And I'll preface this by saying if I was asked this question 10, 11 years ago when I first entered the workforce, it'd be probably a little bit different. I think the greatest challenge starting off was, Sherry, like you said, especially finding my voice in a very, very male dominant field, but also just, my personal experience is in manufacturing. So manufacturing is a very hustle and bustle type of environment, and having a voice or feeling heard was always a challenge there. But with great leadership and working with other mentors and really perfecting some of those skills, today I feel like my greatest challenge, and I think Lorena mentioned this earlier today, but she hates the word work-life balance because it's more of a work-life juggle, and I think that's been a great challenge in general for women in STEM, is finding how to balance both your personal life and your professional life, and continuing your professional career to escalate the way you've always imagined it to. And I think the way I've navigated towards a solution there is really just setting boundaries. And in the beginning of my career, I think I was always out there. I'd come in on Sunday nights, I was taking calls over the weekends, but having the ability to now in my career be able to set those boundaries and give my personal life a different focus has been really important for me.
Darshan, what would you say has been the greatest challenge you've experienced?
I'd build on what Myrna mentioned is that these jobs are never 9-to-5 jobs, and you got to strike your balance somewhere. And where you strike your balance is always your decision. And when you make this decision consciously with open eyes, be peaceful and be at peace with whatever you decide without having guilt. And that's like, if you say no at workplace, you don't feel that guilt. Or if you say no at the family, you still don't feel guilt. And you realize that, hey, this is my decision and this is what I want to do. So defining it for yourself in the first place is the challenge that you generally face early in the career. But that is not necessarily true that you only have to decide it early in the career, because as things changes, you constantly redefine that those kind of balance. So when you are late in the career, the balance is not only about what you think about yourself, but how you influence others and how you provide leadership to others.
That's great. And there's so much there, I think, that I want to unpack a little bit. Each of you mentioned a little bit differently that this is not really a 9-to-5 gig, right? STEM, for anyone that's worked in it, and so much of the industries in which we're involved right now is about balance. And Darshan, you used the word guilt, which I think is really important for us to kind of come back to and think about, which is, maybe particularly in STEM, we're all thinking about, how we continue to innovate, to look at industries that are consistently changing, and how we evolve ourselves in our career. How do you get over that guilt to find the balance that you're talking about of saying, I'm not doing enough in one area versus another?
I can jump in here. And I'll start to say I'm extremely humbled over the last 3 days or so. I've met some pretty incredible women that I'm sure I'm going to repeat some of their phrases and quotes along the way, because it really does fit well. And I think, Darshan, you said it best. You have to find peace with what decisions you're making, and being able to know that, yes, your career is important, but that level of importance could change throughout the years, and other things could take priority, but trying to find that balance and you yourself accepting that balance, it could be a challenge, but I think that's key in moving forward and trying to find, what your true purpose is.
So I would add to that, to what extent you provide importance to others' opinions of you. And sometimes, I have mentored many students or many women who are first generation college student who have so much expectations from everyone, and then they feel like they have a lot to do and they don't have a way to fail. And when you have that kind of load on your head, you stay away from taking risk, you stay away from doing anything adventurous. You just can't fail, and that is not a good mind state. So first thing I tell to my students, or anyone whom I'm mentoring, is it's okay if others don't think very high of you, or sometimes you fail expectations of others. That's okay. And that's having that understanding and acceptance that what you think of yourself is probably the most important, and you are not necessarily how to meet expectations of everyone around you.
So great and so true. Sherry, did you want to jump in on that as well?
I just think that at different points in your career, you have different levels of balance, and they change, and your priorities change. So you just have to be kind to yourself and go with your priorities at the moment, depending on where you are in your life, and know that, it's not forever. And whatever choice you make in a given year, whether it be for your career or your family, isn't permanent, and that you'll make another decision in 5 years and 5 years from then. So just cut yourself some slack and do what you need to do for that moment in time, and know that, a moment is a moment, and there'll be other moments.
That's great advice. Sherry, you also talked a little bit about being the only woman in the room as one of the challenges that you faced. Can you share a little bit more about how you really got beyond that challenge and finding yourself as the only female voice?
I think the hardest thing is, and I don't know if it's gender or my own personality, but certainly I was the only woman in the room in a high-tech area. So the men tended to speak more often and louder, and my own personality is one to sort of listen and then observe and then say something, because I want to make sure that I understand all the implications of what I'm saying before I speak. And I think it just took a little time just to listen and see how everyone interacted and find my own voice and be able to speak my opinion, and not necessarily, wait for the perfect moment. I think that, as women, we sometimes do, and you have to be able to just take a chance and speak up when you have an opinion. And I think it's something that perhaps comes with experience and time, where you just say, okay, I understand what's happening. I understand this conversation, and it's time for me to speak up. And I think for me, that was the biggest challenge, was just being in a meeting with all men and finding my own voice. And I think the way I communicated was a little different than how men communicated as well.
So, I think one of the other things that you each alluded to a little bit is early in your career versus later on in your career. What do you see as the difference of how you've gotten through those types of challenges? What has, early in your career versus later in your career really helped you learn differently or approach differently?
I remember my experience of being a president of maths club early in high school. So when I was president of maths club, I was the only girl who aspired to be president of maths club. So the only thing, this is something, such an experience that I realized that these boys were not bad. They were not intentionally excluding or including anyone. But one of the key barriers that I observed was I did not have the information. Many times, it's all boys gang and they share something and that you're not part of, so you feel like you're clueless. Early in the career, you feel hesitation to ask them openly that, hey, keep me in loop. Later in the career, you feel so much comfortable in saying, you didn't share it with me, right? So I think that those things changes, and I realized that many times, many of the challenges I faced early in the career, being the only woman in the room, and this lot of things, it was more about me or hurdles, which was more internal in nature. Yes, there is definitely, I would not say no, there is environment, of course, plays impact. I'm not saying no at all, but there is still a lot of internal inhibitions that we have inside. And then later on the career, eventually you outgrow those.
Yeah, I'll just add on to what Darshan was saying. And it's funny because I agree. In my early career, not only are there limited amount of women to reach out to, but I constantly felt that everyone else kind of knew a little bit more than me. I didn't want to ask the dumb questions, and I was a lot more hesitant to go about it that way. And I think to a certain degree that puts you back a little bit, because you're not going to get that information if you don't ask those questions. Whereas, and maybe it's just with the experience and the comfortability over a decade, it's not having the fear to ask that question. And I think later in my career is when I realized, just because I don't know it doesn't mean everyone else does know it, and everyone else probably is asking the same question. And I think it takes a little bit of comfortability, whether it's a really technical engineering question or just a process cultural question. I think to a certain level, I just feel a little bit more comfortable asking questions in general and being able to gather that information.
So with that in mind, what advice would you give to a rising female talent in these fields? And what do you think is really specific about STEM as you think about that?
One thing that, and maybe this goes across multiple industries and not just STEM, but one thing that I've said on some of our breakout sessions is you have to get really comfortable with promoting yourself. And and especially in a very technical field where you may not feel like you have all the information, you may not feel like you are the best technically, but being able to promote yourself, because you're the only person that's going to promote yourself as aggressively as you will. So, and in that same breath, I will say, especially in the STEM role, be so good at what you're doing. Hustle, read a lot more than just what your job description is asking you to do, and gain that knowledge, because that builds confidence. And along with that, build your network, because that's so important. You could be the best at your job, but if you don't have a network of people around you, I think that can sway you in the wrong direction.
Sherry, anything that you would add to that in terms of, advice for rising talent?
Yes, I think Myrna made some excellent points, and I do like the hustle comment as well. I think that STEM is ever changing, right? We know that technology changes so rapidly. So, and our, folks just coming out of school, they're learning new things, and it's going to keep changing for them too. So they have to just keep faith that they have to keep learning, like Myrna said, and keep reading and look for classes where possible. You're not going to be able to know everything new, though, all the time. So I think the other thing I would suggest to younger ladies coming up in STEM is to find a partner who maybe complements your skill set. So if you have, a great machine learning background, but you're not a Java programmer, then maybe find somebody who is and partner with them and have this other technical resource that you could rely on as you move forward on your career, and you'll learn from that person as well. So I'd say seek a partner in STEM that could complement your skills so you could continue to learn and also work with them. And then, of course, making sure that you have your own, board of directors, so to speak, as you progress in your career as well, would be some other advice. And the board can be somebody from your own company, but also it might be a former teacher. Keep your board diverse. We should all have a diverse board of directors to support us as we move to our career and continue to change it as you grow as well. But I think I would also suggest not to be afraid. You're not going to know everything, especially for young ladies coming into STEM, not to fear that you don't know 100% of the answers. Know what you do know. And just, I think as our last keynote said, sometimes you fake it until you make it, but, just go learn, have your partner, but don't be afraid to jump forward because you don't know everything.
So great. And Darshan, you talked a little bit about mentoring. How do you think you approach mentoring and that feels different for you?
Yes, I think one of the most important part of mentoring women into STEM field is asking them to come out of their own comfort zones. So many years and years, they might have told a lot of things to themselves, and a lot of other people have also told a lot of things to themselves that I am not good in math, I can't code, I cannot do this, I cannot do this, statistics, it's too hard for me. Those kind of things you keep telling yourself, which may not be true. And that's where if you take some risk, you come out of your comfort zone, you just wonder. And this is something I would say to my students, that this is one thing I have observed, that boys wander more aimlessly than women do. And wandering aimlessly is not aimless. It has its own benefits. And when you go out of your comfort zone and wander aimlessly, you discover many things that others have not found, and which is something very important. And so if I had a student, and that's a very funny story. I told her that, hey, she's a fashion student, she's very good at recognizing patterns, and when she's recognizing patterns, I invited her that, Joan, come in my data mining class, you will be a huge resource for us. And she's like, if you promise me you're not gonna talk maths and programming, I'll be there. was like, no, you're coming. I'm going to talk maths. I'm going to talk formulas and I'm going to talk programming. But I promise you, you will enjoy it. So I think that, sometimes I agree with Sherry that you need someone in your life who care more for you than the work. And that's something extremely important, that you get that authentic, genuine feedback.
Excellent. I think one of the things that you kind of landed on there, and I think Michelle even just left a comment in here, not all who wander are lost. That's, so important. And as it comes back to intellectual curiosity and advocating for yourself. But, what's so inspiring in terms of what you say is really what comes back to one of the themes of what we've been talking about, is how we lift each other up and how women help other women. So I'm curious, from each of your perspectives, what advice would you give to someone who was looking to get involved as a mentor or to help lift up others in the field?
I'll jump in, and Darshana, I love what you just finished off saying, where, a lot of times those statements that girls make of, oh, I hate math, there's no way I could do STEM. And I think there's this math myth that goes around that if you're not good at math, you can never be a STEM person. And that's just not true. But I think one of the best ways to get involved as an advocate is to, I always say, start with the young girls, because it is so important to hold on to their curiosity and hold on to their eagerness and their energy at such a young age, because at some point that's when they start losing it. But if you hold on to them and you have them kind of leverage that curiosity at such a young age, it's hugely beneficial. So just being out there, and if mentorship maybe isn't your thing, just getting involved with, I met a few folks from the Girl Scouts earlier, but getting involved with things of that sort, that you could start at the base level and hold on to their energy at such a young age.
I agree that middle school is key. We have to get to the young ladies in middle school and hold on to them through high school, so they have the confidence to continue on in college when they are going to perhaps be surrounded by more males than females. But I think those numbers are changing as well. I think as well, like I'm on the advisory board of SheTech, which is to try to help women come into tech. And those may be women who are in transition, who have left the workforce and are trying to come back or trying to learn about data analytics. So they offer classes on weekends for people wanting to learn about data analytics, and it's at no cost to the person. So there are ways that you could offer yourself as a mentor in different organizations, whether it be in SheTech or others, women in tech as well. And of course, offering yourself as a mentor within your own company, and knowing, that you have an open door policy. I have, mentees of, all over the world, and happy to work with them and watch them progress and, find out what each one of them wants. And, you do your best to help them gain the skills and the confidence to move forward in their careers. So there's a give and take. You learn from your mentees as well. That's for sure. It's a bi-directional relationship with your mentees.
Darshan, was there anything you wanted to add to that? I saw the unmute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So I think one of the very important thing is that, like, a STEM expertise, or when you have that some of the knowledge, or you are seen, not only you have knowledge, when you are seen as you have expertise, that has a lot of power, but it comes with a lot of responsibility. So when you are seen as someone who knows something, one of the key responsibility that you have, you do not create psychological barriers for others. You do not say that it's hard. You do not speak this kind of word that, it takes us years to be here. You try to ease people in this field, and it's more harder is the field. For example, whenever, this is one rule of thumb I have found as a professor, is harder is the subject, you are less expected to say it's hard. It's you will have to work very hard. Try to say that you're gonna get it. It's piece of cake. You would do great. I trust you. I have that faith in you. And that having someone faith in you, that is very, very powerful. And I would say that that's important.
That's incredible. Probably one of the best things I've heard around mentoring from you ladies, and I thank you for that. Sherry, there's something that you said earlier that I want to go back to, which is you didn't realize that you'd find yourself in STEM. And then, what we just hit on a little bit is that there's this math myth of, you can't get involved in some of these fields if you don't understand math. So I'm interested, when we talk about STEM, that is potentially something that has some cloudiness around it of what even is that and what is involved as STEM. But for women getting back into the field, women across various different career paths, what would you say about working in STEM and as a woman in STEM? That's a big question.
I think it's a great opportunity. And, it's hard to not be in STEM, right? Because even, technology is everywhere. We use our technology every day on our phones, on our computers. So we're all surrounded by technology all the time and trying to keep up with it. I think that you shouldn't narrow STEM. I would say to young people, STEM isn't working at Apple or working at Google. Like STEM is everywhere, or working at Market Smith. It's everywhere, right? There isn't, if you're working for a newspaper, there's still technology involved in working for a newspaper. So you don't have to limit yourself to what STEM is. And it could be, I also think that you could be a marketer or a product marketer. So you could be in product management and have gone to school for programming, and maybe you don't want to be a programmer, but you really like to help design products. That's a STEM job, right? And depending on what the product is, it could be anything, right? But product management with a technical background is a great thing to have. Marketing is also fantastic, if you have some tech skills behind you, or you may end up being marketing in a tech firm. So maybe the opposite. You may have gone to school for marketing and you end up in a technology firm, helping them market their products. So you're still a woman in STEM. So I think you have to broaden out what, being in STEM means. So your background could be technical in school, and it may not be technical in school, but you may still end up in a technical job. And I think that you have to be open to the possibilities, open the doors if they're there and they seem interesting to you, for sure. And I always say that our careers are never a straight path. I think about it as like a path in your backyard, those little round stones. And you may go here and there and there and here, and it's more like a diagonal line. But I have a degree in marketing and television management. And I am running IT at a technology firm. So you just have to be open to the possibilities of the doors that open along the way. And then just continuing to walk through them. I mean, I literally started my first job. I worked for a television management company. I did exactly what I went to school for. We were we helped move things before satellites. So if you wanted to watch a syndicated show, for instance, we literally, we sold advertising and syndicated television shows. I helped run their computer system. So to me, that I made sure the computer system was running. This is fresh out of school, right? Our tape backups were me taking the tape on the train home. That was our tape backup. But that led to me working for the company that wrote our software, and that led to another job. So I think that you just have to open up your mind to what your background is and what STEM is, and understand that there's a lot of possibilities out there. You don't have to be a scientist to be in STEM.
So great. And I think that comes back to even what you were each saying about confidence, right? Don't be afraid of asking the question. Don't be afraid of looking silly in a room, and don't be afraid to take that next opportunity, that next risk. And there are risks that we take every day that, probably earlier in the career seemed like the hardest decision of all time, and now are just muscle memory, right, of those types of decisions that we make. Darshan or Myrna, anything that you'd want to add in terms of, these preconceived notions of STEM or what the field is like?
Definitely. So the STEM is changing. STEM itself is changing. What was STEM yesterday is different than what STEM is today and what STEM is going to be tomorrow. So when I was in high school, I did not know there will be a career like data scientist. When my husband was in high school, he did not know there is a career will be like a software architect. There is no way we can imagine in college or even in high school that we will be someone whom we did not even knew that those people will exist, right? So the STEM itself is changing so fast. And when the boundaries between machines and humans are blurring, and when this world is so dynamic, STEM is not something optional. We have seen pandemic and we know how we came out of it, and we know the contribution of STEM and where we are right now, or even like we are able to go out of home is thanks to STEM, right? This is the contributions, and we know that we can't live without that. It's not something optional. It's all around us, and you don't have option of not embracing it. And knowing that, you will have much more openness to embrace hard things. And another thing I have seen a lot when it comes to women in STEM, I think I have seen, I have mentored both men and women, and men had this notion early on that this is not specifically true, it's not generalization, but sometimes I have heard women saying more often that I like to do what I love to do. And that is good thing. There is nothing wrong in doing what you love to do. But the problem with this whole ideology that you do what you love to do is a static thing, what I love to do. And that means I know what I love to do and I don't love anything else than this one thing. And that's closes you to many other opportunities out there. So I would say that be open-minded, as Sherry mentioned. There is a lot of things out there, and your career may not be like a straight line, like you picked this and you did this. Be open to the new ideas and new opportunities to add value to the world.
So great. Thank you. Myrna, anything you want to add to that?
Just two follow-ups to what Darshan was saying. First, what I thought was really interesting is STEM continuously changes, but so does every other job. In a previous role of mine, we asked first and second graders what they wanted to do when they got older. And I can't tell you how many said they want to be social media influencers. And I thought, wow, I wish that was an option when I was growing up. Like every day, there's just these new opportunities that are coming up, and I think it's like Darshan said, it's up to us to embrace those. And you're absolutely right. There's no way to avoid STEM. There's no way to avoid technology. We saw it greatly with this pandemic. The reason we are having this virtually is through technology. And I think in every industry, in every scenario, you're going to be faced with some sort of technology or technology challenges that you will have to work through. And so getting out of the mindset that STEM is solely just a math thing or an engineering thing is really important to keep women in the field moving forward.
So let's talk about it, because we have to, right? Which is the pandemic and what that's done to everyone here. So we've heard a lot about how the pandemic adversely affected women, right? And how we've had so many women exit the career path because of the pandemic. But, how would you say that the last 18 or 19 months or so have affected women in your field in particular?
I want to answer this in a way that, my thoughts around this have changed through the last 19 months, right? Initially, and I think it was a huge challenge, not just for women in the field, but for moms in the field, because the first challenge that we saw were daycares were shut down. Childcare was so rare and was so limited that played a huge part in in your career, because there was another factor now that you weren't ready for, and I think it was very challenging in the beginning. And to kind of go along with that is we were mixing home with work. I mean, I was working 16-hour days trying to take care of an infant, and it was not easy. Now, with that said, I think it's important to also know a lot of the positives that came out of the pandemic. And I think it's important to recognize that to a certain level, and this is, maybe just my experience, but to a certain level, we were able to level the playing field almost. Because now we are, or at least for me, you ask anyone I know, I'm an introvert. I was always a shy person. But now behind a screen, I feel a lot more comfortable speaking and a lot more comfortable, putting my thoughts out there, and it kind of takes away that physical factor, right? A lot of the biases that we build on people physically, that went away a little bit, and to some level, it does kind of level that playing field. I think on top of that too, right? Working from home, online meetings, flex hours. These are things that women in the industry have kind of been fighting for this entire time, and now it's become possible because it's inevitable. And it's really important to note that there were advantages and there were positives that also came out of the pandemic.
Darshan, anything that you would add to that?
So I think I'm so glad, Medna, you mentioned the positives, right? And I remember people saying that, hey, this can't be done online. You got to come to office, and there is no way you can do this online. And all these people all of a sudden became all quiet. And I wonder, like, where are you now? You were saying this can't be done online. Now you have done online many things. So I have struggled balancing childcare, career, and everything. So this is a huge opportunity that there was a block in the head of companies' mindset that many things can't be done online, and there has to be people like be there at the workplace. So it added a lot in terms of expectations of flexibility, and rather the new generation, the students who are there right now in the school, they are very different, and they don't take flexibility as some gift given to them. They expect that to be in the workplace, and if you are not giving flexibility, they are asking pay premium. So there is a completely different expectations on the pay if you are expected to have flexibility versus not having flexibility. So I think that is a huge contribution of pandemic, is adoption of technology. Companies are forced to adopt this technology. It has given a huge rise to analytics, data science careers, because what follows technology is analytics. What follows technologies is we produce more data, we produce more opportunities to analyze, to get value out of this added data. So I think it opens up a lot of opportunities that we need to be aware of. At the same time, I also am aware of the students who are having access issues, whose home environment is not as what we expect, and they are sometimes struggling with being able to even find some space to quietly study. And in those time, like, you realize that when they are in the college, they actually are in the college. When you are I have my students in home, are they really in my class? To what extent they're present in the moment? Do they really bring their whole authentic self in the Zoom classroom? And it's not about willingness, it's about ability. When you are babysitting your child at the same time while you are studying or taking a course, it's different. And then you are judged or evaluated based on your contribution in the meeting. That's when we all need to be more considerate and kind to the people and their background, and accepting them wholly as who they are, not only as an individual, but with their environment.
I do think that we also, I mean, I think it's challenging for women with younger children for sure, and balancing that out. But I do think in tech, and women in tech in particular, we're lucky in that we were all connected, right? So it was a very easy transition, and we were able to continue to work where some women who weren't in tech weren't able to keep their jobs. So, you know, we have a very different perspective on this panel because we are in technology fields and we're able to continue our careers where not everyone was able to do that. In addition, there are different parts of the world for us, and in my company, we are able to offer women a night shift in some parts of the world where we couldn't, where it wasn't safe before. So that provided an opportunity for them. So again, there's a positive and the negative, but the positive for us was being able to do that and to offer that. So there is, you know, technology definitely was a benefit during this pandemic for sure.
Sorry.
But I think we all got used to people's children coming in to meetings, et cetera. And I would say this is not just a female thing. I mean, you know, we have men with young families who, you know, definitely also balance things out, right? For sure. Also trying to balance things out in home and who could be available for the kids and who needed to be on a call and things like that.
All right, final question for the panelists, and then we'll open it up to audience questions. We know that we have a really diverse audience here in terms of career path, journey stage, tenure, fields of expertise. With that in mind, do you have any final advice or thoughts that you want to share with the audience? Myrna, I think you had something you wanted to share.
Sure, I can start this one. I think, and I probably already said it all, but like I've mentioned before, but be so good at what you're doing and be so comfortable with what you're doing that you really can't be ignored. But in the same breath, really foster those meaningful relationships, because the combination of those two can really take you to unbelievable ones. And that's what I've learned.
That's great. Sherry, any final advice?
I would build on Myrna's as well. I mean, I think networking is important and you take your relationships with you forward, and it also helps others. So but going back to the mentoring conversation, how do I help my mentees? Well, I connect them with my network. So if somebody's interested in cybersecurity, I could have them talk to somebody in cybersecurity. So I think it's important to take your, you know, to establish relationships and continue those relationships as you move on in your career, and seek opportunities and not be afraid to open the door. You know, even if you think that you only have the skills to open it a crack, just go ahead and push it open and keep learning.
So great. Darshan?
So be comfortable to come out of comfort zone and don't limit yourself, and feel the freedom that you have to wander aimlessly occasionally.
That's great. So great. All right, so we can open it up to audience questions. If you have any, please enter them into the chat box. Okay.
We don't have any questions. I really just wanted to say thank you to everyone on this panel. I feel humbled and honored to speak here. Darshan, Sherry, it's honestly been a pleasure getting to know the two of you. So thank you, and thank you to the NJBIA team for giving us this opportunity.
Agree. Thank you for the opportunity, and it was a pleasure meeting everyone as well on the panel. I'd love everybody brings something a little different and blended it together, and it, you know, made a really good smoothie. So
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be with such a fantastic woman here. And Karina, thank you so much for asking very, very meaningful questions. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, if there are no questions, then thank you all for joining us live. This was just fantastic and an honor to be here with the panelists, with the NJBIA, and with all of you that are joining us. Thank you to the NJBIA for bringing us together and allowing us to share our journey. And then just a friendly reminder, there's 3 on-demand breakout sessions that are available. Don't forget to check those out. So again, thank you on behalf of me and all of the panelists for joining us and for attending. We hope you've enjoyed yourself, and we'll see you at the next one.
Ladies, that was just incredible. I took so many notes. You really gave us a lot to think about and really to inspire and aspire to. And the whole discussion about, we talk about STEM and yet how STEM resonates through everything we do now, right? I mean, we can't just say STEM is an industry. STEM is on the horizontal and fits into everything, regardless of who we are and what we do. And at NJBIA, workforce development is so significantly important to us, and preparing today's workforce for jobs that do not even exist yet. And, Darshan, I think you said that, right? You were like, I didn't know that was going to be the job I was going to have because it didn't exist then. We say this each and every day about ensuring that we're building the proper skill set, because we know we're trying to build skills for jobs that don't even exist, and how challenging that can be. And yet that's what we must do in workforce development today. This isn't academics as yesteryear, right? We got to pick this up, and BIA is always at the center of that. Just a few takeaways for me here. Wander aimlessly and explore your intellectual curiosity is so true, right? We all talk about, like, don't confuse it with, the need to be focused, okay? But if you go through life with blinders on, you're going to miss the next best opportunity. And I've shared this with so many people. I shared it this morning. If I went through my personal career path with my blinders on, I'm an attorney by trade. I became a lawyer to eventually become a judge. Clearly, I'm a little off my career path, and yet the experiences that I had presented to me, because I had my eyes open, and when something was presented, I was willing to take the risk because it was the right time for that risk. I'm exactly where I need to be right now, right? So that whole idea, when that door opens, don't be afraid to walk through it. Sometimes we have to assess if it's the right time in our life, right? Taking risk is about, the right time. But my gosh, like, don't, we have to get those blinders out, because it's so important that we keep those opportunities. And then this whole piece of, speak to what's difficult, speak positive to what's difficult, stare it down and crush it. All right. Now, this is one of my personal takeaways, because I'm going to give everyone a challenge in a minute, because I'm going to ask you all, what are you going to be doing to put into action? But I have to tell you, speak positive to what's difficult, stare it down and crush it. I'm the worst, test taker in the world. Okay. If I have to, now think about, right, took the SAT to go to college, had to take the LSATs to get into law school, and had to take the bar exam. You want to talk about the 3 scariest days of my lives? You got them right there. Okay. I'm taking a certification class for something next week, and I have been in a frenzy about it. Okay. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, are you kidding me? At this stage in your life, you're going to go in there, and you know what? If you pass it or not, who cares? You're going to go in there positive, and you're just going to try your best to crush it, right? You ladies have inspired me to, like, get out of my own way and feel confident about what I know and walk in there and just crush that, no matter how much I hate that damn test. So, what I learned throughout all of this, a constant sad theme over the last 3 days, the childcare crisis is real. It brings tears to my eyes, okay? Because I've heard it emotionally, and I've seen the pain in people's face, and I see what people have done to pivot around this, to continue to keep their personal and their professional careers on course. And yet we know 1.8 million women stepped out of the labor force over the last 19 months because of childcare challenges. We must fix this. And this isn't just about fixing the childcare issue as a place to send our kids. We must fix that. We need safe places for our children. 100%. That's broken. But it is also incumbent upon us as employers and people to get the formula right. And what we've learned from COVID is we can have flexibility, and we can allow the childcare worker to do things at home with flexibility that affords them to stay in the labor force and take care of their family at the same time. And we need to keep hammering on that. And I know when I go out and speak, I constantly tell our employers, lean in, because if you want to attract the best and the brightest and retain the best and the brightest, you need to lean into what that workforce needs. And this is what we need, and we need to get these women back in the workforce. So here's my challenge for all of you as we wrap up on this beautiful Friday. Though remember, you have those demands out there, right? Those programs on demand. I want to ask you a couple questions. What are you going to do, and what are you going to put into action today based upon what you heard over the last 3 days? I told you I've got some action items for myself, okay? But for yourself, what are you going to put into action today? How will you stretch, but also how will you go back to your foundation? How will you have self-reflection and awareness for the things that you heard? And I'm going to ask you to go back and think about, what are the 3 words that define you as an individual, personally and professionally, that personal brand, right? Your authentic self that you bring to everything you do each and every day, whether it's your family, whether it's your work, or it's your colleagues or your community. And in thinking about those 3 words, don't go it alone, right? Go to your trusted souls, go to your family, go to your colleagues and say, you know what? I'm doing a little self-reflection here. What is it that you see in me that maybe I don't see in me? Because some of us struggle in understanding where our strengths lie, right? So ask some others to help inform that process, and do the exercise and take the time to think about it, because that's what's going to make us stronger at our own foundation. When we are stronger in our own foundation, the next question is, what are you going to do to empower others, right? Because this is just about our self-empowerment, right? We're women. We lean in and we pull each other along, and we reach back and we pull them forward. And we're informed by those who are coming after us as well, right? If it's in just one person or a group of people, what are you going to do to empower someone else based upon what you heard over the last 3 days? And just the third piece of this is, we're all about the collective good. What are you going to do to share in your community, right? To take the next best iteration of yourself, the A game that you bring every day, and how are you going to bring that back to the collective good, so that all together we can raise each other up, and we can raise our community up, and we can get the hell out of this crazy COVID world that we're living in better than we were before. Learning from the experiences, having conquered the challenges, and just feeling great about how we continue to move forward. Ladies, it has been such an incredible pleasure to spend 3 days with you. As I said, you've given me a bounce in my step. I just feel like I'm ready to go conquer the world this afternoon. And in closing, I want to do a quick shout out, because I know that Monica Smith, who's our Karen Franzini Award winner, she was on. I hope she's still on for a quick shout out and congratulations. And I want to remind you all that we have a 30-second survey. What I say by that is to take about 30 to 60 seconds to complete the survey on how this experience worked for you over the last 3 days. Because when we come back next year, we want to be bigger and better, just like we've done each year before, in order to bring us here today. NJBIA team, you guys crushed it. This has been fantastic. Thank you to the team. Ladies, I want to say thank you to all of you. Continue to be well, continue to be healthy, safe, and reach out to each other. And let's go, girls. We can do it. Bye, everybody.